Здравствуйте. Hello and welcome to Russian language class. Before moving on, let's have a quick recap of the things that we learnt in the previous lesson. In the previous lesson, we learnt the active participle in the present and past tense. So, let's look at the examples that we have already discussed in the previous lesson. Какая девушка учится в вашей группе? Which girl studies in your group? Девушка, которая читает стихи, учится в нашей группе. The girl who is reading the poems now studies in our group. So, here we are using the word katori in a complex sentence, and that is how we can reply to this question. The another way is to use an active participle. Девушка, читающая стихи, учится в нашей группе. The girl who is reading a poem studies in our group. So, here we are using the present active participle or present participle active. The next is каких студентов вы встретили в буфете? Which students did you meet at the canteen? В буфете я встретил студентов, которые приехали из Москвы. So, at the canteen I met the students who came from Moscow. Or we can use a participle, since the action which is taking place here is in the past tense, we will use the past participle active. В буфете я встретил студентов, приехавших из Москвы. At the canteen I met the students who came from Moscow. Here we are using the active participle in the past tense, and the gender, number and case will depend on the noun it qualifies. So, here the noun which it qualifies is studentov, which is in the accusative case plural number. So, the form of приехавший will be in the plural number and accusative case. So, this was about the present participle active. So, now we will look at the past participle passive and active participle passive. So, basically we will be discussing passive participle. The topic that we are going to discuss now is the passive participle. So, how do you understand the passive participle? Passive participles are the participles which denote an action in the passive voice. Passive voice you already know. So, the passive participles, they denote an action in the passive voice. They are further classified into present participle passive and past participle passive. Present participle passive, which denotes an action in the present tense, and past participle passive, which denotes an action in the past tense. So, let us first discuss the present participle passive. Present participle passive, how do we form the present participle passive? From the verbs. And one more important thing here to mention is the passive participles are only derived from the transitive verbs. Transitive verbs you already know. Transitive verbs are verbs which require a direct object. So, now let us try to form the present participle passive with the verbs like читать, любить, получать and видеть. So, how do we form the present participle passive from these verbs? The rule is very simple. The first thing you have to do is you have to take the conjugated form of these verbs in the first person plural number. So, with мы, if we conjugate the verb читать, what do we get? Читаем, and then you add the ending of an adjective which is и and и краткое. So, first take the first person plural number conjugated form and then add the adjectival ending и and и краткое, and you get the present participle passive. So, читать, читаемый. Similarly, любить, любим plus и and и краткое, любимый. Получать, получаем, which is the conjugated form with first person plural number plus en ikrat ke paluchaimui. Vidit, vijim, en ikrat ke vijimi. So this is how we have to form the present participle passive. Now there are certain verbs with the endings dava, stava, znava. So if you come across the verbs with these endings, then the present participle passive will be derived from their infinitive forms. So first you will take the infinitive form, drop the ending, and you will add yemui at the end to get its present participle passive. For example, davach, davach is to give. So drop the ending which is the and soft sign and add yemi, davaimi. Similarly, pradavach, pradavach is to sell. Drop the ending the and soft sign and add yemi, pradavaimi. Uznavach, uznavach is to know, to recognize, to get to know. Uznavach, uznavaimi. Stavach, stavaimi. So this is another rule. If you come across any verb with these endings, you will have to follow this rule, that we have to derive their present participle passive from their infinitive forms. So this is about the formation of present participle passive. So now we will look at the examples where we use present participle passive. Now we will look at some of the examples of present participle passive. So some sentences where present participle passive has been used. So let us start with the question first and then we will answer using the present participle passive. Kakiye karchini vismatreli vetam muzei. So which paintings did you look at in this museum? Mi смотрели все картины, которые показывают в этом музее. So we looked at all the pictures, которые показывают, which are being shown in this museum. So here we are using the word katori and answering the question. So since we are using a complex sentence, we are using the word katori in the subordinate clause. So now we will try to answer this question using the present participle passive. And how do we do that? Mi смотрели все картины, показываемые в музее. Or показываемые в этом музее. So we looked at all the pictures which are being shown in the museum. As you can see here, this action is being denoted in the passive voice and the action is taking place in the present, that is why we are using present participle passive. Now the second question we have is какие новости вы слушаете? So which news are you listening to? Мы слушаем новости, которые передают по радио. We are listening to the news which are being broadcast on radio. This comes from передавать. Передавать is to telecast or broadcast. Мы слушаем новости, передаваемые по радио. So here we are using the present participle passive. So which are being broadcast. So here the action is in the passive voice, that is why we are using the present participle passive, and the action is taking place in the present, that is why present tense. The next question we have is какие машины вам нравятся? So which cars do you like? So here again we will try to answer it with a complex sentence using katori and then using the present participle passive. Нам нравятся машины, которые производят в Японии. So we like the cars which are produced in Japan. Japonia is Japan. So, here we are using the verb производить is to produce. So, which are being produced in Japan. Again the action is in the passive voice. So, we will use passive participle, and since it is taking place in the present tense, we will use present participle passive. So, how do we do that? Нам нравятся машины производимые в Японии. So, here from the verb производить we derive or we form the present participle passive производимые в Японии. So, now another important point while discussing the passive participle is, so whenever we denote the performer of an action, it has to be in the instrumental case. For example, рассказы, которые мы читаем, очень интересны. As you can see, in the subordinate clause, которые мы читаем, мы is the performer of the action, which is читать. So, if you change it into present participle passive, then you have to change the performer of the action in the instrumental case. Рассказы, читаемые нами, очень интересны. So, here as you can see, we have changed me into nami, which is the instrumental case. Why? Because me is the performer of the action, and whenever we use a present passive participle, we use the performer of the action in the instrumental case. So, this is about the present participle passive. Now, we will discuss about the past participle passive. Now, we are going to discuss past participle passive. So, how do we form the past participle passive and where do we use them? The first thing, we will discuss the formation of past participle passive. How do we form them from the verbs? The first thing that I would like to mention here is past participle passive are always formed from the perfective aspect of the verbs. So, we will not consider the imperfective aspects. So, they are only derived or formed from the perfective aspect of the verbs. The first rule says, if the verb ends with either at as of sign or yat as of sign, then we use the suffix n and e krat ke. So, this is how we form the past participle passive. For example, prachitach, as you can see, it ends with at and soft sign. There is a verb with the ending at as soft sign. How do we form the passive participle past? We drop the ending which is the and soft sign and add n and e krat ke. So, prachitanni, prachitach, prachitanni. Similarly, napisach, napisach again ends with at and soft sign. Napisanni. We are doing the same thing, we will drop the and soft sign and add n and e krat ke. Napisanni. Now, the second rule says, if the verbs end with e soft sign, then we use the suffixes either yenni or yonni. So, these are two suffixes which are used with the verbs which end with e soft sign. For example, построить, построить is to build, построить ends with e and soft sign. So, that is why we will use the suffix yenni, построенный. Построенный is the past participle passive from the verb построить. Решить, решить is the perfective aspect of the verb решать, to decide. Решенный, so here we are using yonni. Next is купить, купить, купленный. So, here we are using yenni with an additional consonant l. If you remember the conjugation of kupit, ya kuplyu. So, with ya we always use this additional consonant l. So, which is carried forward in the past participle passive. Next is asvobodit, to set free. Освобожденный, Asvabash Gionni. So, here we are using Yonni. Upatribit. Upatribit is the perfective aspect of the verb upatriblyach, to use. How do we make the past participle passive from this verb? Upatribyonni. So, here again we are using yonni with an additional consonant l, in the same way as we have done with kupit. Brosit. Brosit is to throw. Broshinni. Broshinni. So, here there is a change, there is an alternation of consonant. The s has changed to sh. Why? Because again with ya, when we conjugate brasich with first person singular number, we do the same alternation of consonant. So, which is carried forward in the past participle passive. Now, again there are verbs with the ending s te e or s te soft sign or z te e or z te soft sign. So, whenever we come across any words with these endings, then we use the suffix yoni plus they are the past participle passive, they are formed from their conjugated form. So, first you have to conjugate them in the first person singular number and then you have to form the past participle passive. So, how do we do that? Let us look at some of the examples. Prinischi. Prinischi is to bring. Ya prinisu. So, here you have to conjugate the verb with the first person singular number and then just drop the ending u and add yonni. Prinisyonni. So, this is the past participle passive which has been formed from the verb with the ending s and e. The second example we have is privischi. Privischi ya prividu. Again you have to drop the ending u and add yonni. Privigyonni. The next is pirivischi. Pirivischi is to translate. Ya pirividu. Pirivigyonni. So, this is how we form the past participle passive. So, apart from these two rules, there is one more rule also which we will discuss now. We are discussing about the past participle passive, their formation. We have already discussed about two rules, now we will discuss the third rule. So, to form the past participle passive, if we come across a verb with the ending jet, the, ye, te soft sign or nyat and ya, the and soft sign and the verbs with the conjugation similar to peat, beat, meet or ph. We have already done their conjugations. So, if we come across any verb with the conjugation similar to either peat, beat, meet or ph, then we will form the past participle passive by adding the suffix te, I and ikrat ke. For example, vipit. Vipit is to drink. So, how do you form the past participle passive from this verb vipiti? So, what we are doing is we are removing the ending te and soft sign and adding te, I and ikrat ke. The second verb we have is zakrit. Zakrit is to close. Zakriti. Zakriti. The next verb we have is najet. Najet is to put on. Najeti. Najet, najeti. Panyat, to understand. Poniti. So, this is the past participle passive. In addition to these verbs, there are some verbs like nachach, abmanuch and avzyach. They also take the ending te, I and ikrat ke. So, nachach, nachati, abmanuch, abmanuti and vzyach, vzyati. So, these are the rules of formation of past participle passive. So, now we will discuss their use in the sentences. So, we will look at some of the examples where past participle passive have been used. Now, let us look at some of the examples of past participle passive. So, how do we use past participle passive in sentences? For this, again I have written a question with какая. Какая книга вам нравится? So, which book do you like? Мне нравится книга, которую написал этот автор. So, here we are using a complex sentence with который. Мне нравится книга, которую написал этот автор. So, I like the book which was written by this author. The same sentence, as you can see, this is in the passive voice. The same sentence, how will we change them? Using the past participle passive. Мне нравится книга, написанная этим автором. So, I like the book which was written by this author. So, here as you can see, написанная is the past participle passive, and the form of написанная depends on the form of the noun книга. Since it is a singular number, nominative case and feminine gender, the same gender, number and case will be followed in the past participle passive. That is why написанная is singular and then nominative case and feminine gender. Next is о какой книге сказал вам преподаватель? So, about which book your teacher told you? So, which book your teacher told you about? Преподаватель сказал нам о книге, которую написал этот автор. The teacher told us about the book which was written by this author. So, again the subordinate clause is in the passive voice. So, how do we convert the passive voice using past participle passive? Преподаватель сказал нам о книге, написанной этим автором. Two things are there. First thing, that the performer of the action here has to be in the form of instrumental case. That is why этот автор has been changed to этим автором. And the form of написанной will depend on the form of the noun which it qualifies. So, as you can see here, it qualifies the noun книге, which is in the prepositional case. So, that is why написанной will also be in the prepositional case, singular number and feminine gender. So, the corresponding form of написанной is написанной. The next example is какие картины вы видели в музее? So, which pictures did you see at the museum? В музее мы видели картины, которые создали известные художники. So, at the museum we saw the pictures which were made by the famous painters. So, here we are using the verb создать. В музее мы видели картины, созданные известными художниками. Similar to the second example, here also we are using the performer of the action, and since it is the performer of the action, that will be kept in the form of instrumental case. So, известные художники, известными художниками, and созданные will correspond to the form of картины, because созданные qualifies the noun картины, and картины is the accusative case, plural number. So, that is why созданные will also be in the accusative case, plural number. So, this was some of the examples where we saw the use of past participle passive in Russian. So, like we have also discussed that there are some active participles which are used as nouns. Similarly, there are some passive participles too which are used as nouns. For example, Ranini, Danye and Uchonye. Ranini is a wounded man Danya is data, and Uchyone is scientists. So, these are few of the nouns which are basically past participle passive, but now they are being used as nouns. So, this was all about past participle passive. Now, we will move on to the next topic. Now, I will read out a text, and in the text there are participles which have been used and which we have studied just now. So, please pay attention to the use of participles and listen to the text carefully. So, the text contains 3 paragraphs. So, I will read out the Russian version first paragraph, and then I will tell you the meaning, and then I will read out the second paragraph and the meaning, and the third paragraph and the meaning. So, please listen to me carefully. Alexei Alexandrovich Bakhrushin был удивительным коллекционером, создавшим единственный в России театральный музей и человеком, оставившим огромный след в русской культуре. So, I'll repeat the line again. Алексей Александрович Bakhrushin был удивительным коллекционером, создавшим единственный в России театральный музей и человеком, оставившим огромный след в русской культуре. Отец Bakhrushin, владевший большим московским заводом, приучил сына к тому, что деньги – дело серьезное, и тратить их нужно с умом. Отец, имевший миллионное состояние, держал сына в ежовых рукавицах и лишних денег не давал. Отец, имевший миллионное состояние, держал сына в ежовых рукавицах и лишних денег не давал. So, now I will tell you the meaning of this paragraph. Alexei Alexandrovich Bakhrushin was an amazing collector who built the only museum of theatre in Russia, and he was the man who left a huge trace in the Russian culture. Bakhrushin's father, who owned a big factory in Moscow, trained his son to the fact that money is a serious thing and one must use his mind in order to spend that. The father, despite having millions in wealth, held his son with an iron rod and did not give him any extra money. The second paragraph goes like this. К музейному собирательству Bakhrushin, всегда интересовавшийся театром, пришел случайно. Но, сделав выбор, он оставался верным ему всю жизнь и никаких денег не жалел, если нужно было купить что-то из истории театра. Собранная им коллекция уникальна. В ней и письмо русских драматургов, и портреты актеров, и рецензии, написанные крупнейшими русскими критиками, и рисунки, сделанные известными театральными художниками. Now, I will tell you the meaning of this paragraph. Though he was always interested in theatre, he got into museum of collection by chance. However, after he made his choice, he remained loyal to it the whole life, and he did not mind spending money if something was to be bought from the history of theatre. The collection gathered by him is unique. In this collection, there are letters of Russian playwrights, the portraits of actors, reviews written by the great Russian critics, and figures drawn by the famous theatre painters. The third paragraph. И сегодня люди, приходящие в уникальный музей, говорят спасибо его основателю, приоткрывшему им дверь в удивительный мир истории театра. I'll repeat the paragraph once again. И сегодня люди, приходящие в уникальный музей, говорят спасибо его основателю, приоткрывшему им дверь в удивительный мир истории театра. And today people coming to the unique museum say thanks to its founder, who opened to them the door of the amazing world of history of theatre. So, this is the end of the text. So, with this text I conclude this lesson here. So, we will meet in the next class. Till then, spasiba, до свидания.